Well, we're going to continue our series, and today is so important because we're going to use David as an illustration. If you ever felt like you've been overlooked, or you weren't good enough, or you weren't smart enough, or you weren't confident enough, or you weren't talented enough, you're in good company because David was like that. I felt like that myself. I felt like that really growing up. A big part of my life I felt that way because, I didn't read well, and I had dyslexia, and I had attention deficit. And I'll never forget the fourth grade. Fourth grade was a tough year for me. I always joked about it. My teacher liked me so much, she kept me 2 years. And I always laughed about it, but it really didn't feel that way. The truth was, in my fourth grade, nobody told me they were going to keep me back. That's called you fail. And so I went to school by myself. The teacher didn't tell me, and my parents didn't tell me. And I walked in to get my report card, and it said that, hey, you failed. And I was devastated. Nobody was there. Nobody thought. I thought not only did I feel overlooked, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't as good as the rest of the kids. I wasn't as smart as the rest of the kids. And I know what it's like. And it bothered me. It bothered me enough that from then on, if I was called to read or to do something, I would rather get in trouble than show that I couldn't do it. So it'll make you do all kinds of things. David learned something different. David took his hurts and he allowed them to help him. And we can all do that. Some of the greatest hurts in my life, when I learned to do it the right way, ended up being the greatest helps in my life. Say David, who seemed to be overlooked by his father and his brother, when it came down to fighting Goliath and standing up for God and Israel, David would do it and his brothers and even the king wouldn't. So he learned that when after his hurt, from his father and brothers rejecting him, he had to go out and tend the sheep. And during that time, that's when he learned from his hurt. David learned that to get his approval and confidence and courage from God. Not man, not his mate, and not money. My question is, where have you been trying to get your confidence? I still understand what it's like today when I finally learned that I don't have to get my acceptance and approval from people. It's one of the greatest things, especially when I first started preaching. I wanted approval. I wanted to be like the good preachers. I wanted to be like the educated preachers. I wanted to even try to talk like them, but I couldn't read their words. It was so great. It's so freeing. It's so accepting. When you finally understand that you get your acceptance and your approval and your encouragement from God just like you are. David learned that even to be overlooked by others, you're never overlooked by God. David learned that he was like overlooked by man, but guess what? He was chosen by God. And guess what? When you get saved, 1 Peter 2:9 says that you're chosen. So don't worry about how other people see you. Worry about how God sees you. Amen? If anybody ever had a reason to have daddy issues, it could have been David. If anybody had a reason to blame their daddy and their brothers for all the problems in their life, it was David. When the prophet Samuel, he came to anoint a new king. And David was the youngest. He was out tending the sheep. And if he felt overlooked and unimportant, because when he came, they didn't even bring David to the table. Let's say the prophet was to anoint him, and David wasn't there. It says in 1 Samuel 16:10, when he got ready to come, it says this, and Jesse, that's David's daddy, made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. He was the prophet. And Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen any of these. The 7 that were there, they were the most likely. They stood out. You could see them. You would think they were the ones. But that wasn't the one that he said. Samuel said to Jesse, are these all the young men here? Then he said, there remains yet the youngest, but he's out there keeping the sheep. In other words, and Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him in, for I will not sit down till he comes here. I'm going to tell you, it's very easy to miss what's right in front of you. That God might be trying to use you. God might be trying to teach you something, but you don't see it. It's like this refrigerator. You can't miss this, amen? I mean, you can see it, but I tell you, there's things inside of it that are easy to miss. I do it all the time. I'll ask Debbie for something. I'll say, Debbie, do we have ketchup? Absolutely, it's in the refrigerator. I'll go to the refrigerator, and I'll start looking around, and sometimes I can't. I say, we got a Coke. Oh, we got dill pickles. I love dill pickles. I can't have a meal. I can't have anything without. We got Sprite. But I don't have ketchup. So what I would do is, I would take the phone. I would call my wife, and I would say, Debbie, you said we had ketchup. She would say, did you look in the corner? I said, I've looked in the whole icebox. She said, look in the corner. This kind of stuff really does happen. This is just not funny. This really does happen all the time at the house. And I'll say, are you sure you got it? So I go back and I go to the refrigerator and I look and it's so, oh, guess what? Guess what was in the corner? And so what happened was, till I knew what it was, until I was really looking for it, it was overlooked and I couldn't find it. That's how easy it is to overlook something. But once you know where it is, guess what? It wasn't that hard to find it, was it? Let me tell you something about this. Do you know how many people live to please people? Do you know how many people get upset when somebody else is upset for them, even though you're doing what's right? Can I tell you, you can be trying to live for the Lord, you can still be trying to do what's right, and there's still going to be people that get upset with you. God said, listen, he's pleased. Listen, he trusted you with a message. We don't speak to please people. But there's some people you speak to displease people. That's not good either. But to please God. Okay, you ready? Fourth, you strive to please when no one's watching. When no one knows what you're doing reveals really who you are. When nobody sees you, that's who you are. Our character is not what others say and think about us. Our character is not what other people say and think. By the way, if you got a lot of drama going on in your life, keep it off Facebook. Because your character is not what other people say and think about you. Your character, are y'all ready? Yes. Your character is what you do and what you say when nobody sees you but God. Amen? Let me ask you a question. How do you feel when God calls you? How do you feel when God tells you to do something? Are you more excited about what God's calling you to do and what God's saying to you? Or are you all worried about what everybody else says? Remember, don't seek your fulfillment by what other people say and do. Instead, find your fulfillment by what God's doing and what God's saying in your life. See, and Samuel said, so the prophet said, hey, so he sent and he brought him, that's David, to him. Now, he was ruddy. That really means he was a runt. But he had bright eyes and he grew up looking better and he was good looking. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him. In other words, anoint him and appoint him, for this is the one. You ready for something? And Samuel took the horn of the oil and anointed him in the midst of his what? Brothers. His brothers and dad was there, probably his mom too. You would have thought, finally, man, you know what he's there for. He's going to be anointed for the new king. You'd have thought everybody had been excited, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. And Samuel rose and left. Nothing happened. So with you, there's things going to go in your life that you think, this is unbelievable. My mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters should be excited, but get your fulfillment from God, not from what other people do. Many times your own family is going to miss what God's doing in your life. Don't you miss it. Many times your own people closest to you will miss what God's doing in your life, and if you're not careful, you'll miss it.